Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, JTF. I'm Chaim Ben Pesach, and we have another program with the great David Ben Moshe. This week is a very important program. The Biden administration is planning, after the election, to admit over 20 million illegal aliens into the United States, to open the border so that over 20 million will come crashing into the United States. Wait till you hear about this crazy plan, which it shouldn't be surprising when you consider what they're doing. And we're going to be exposing more stories about the sanctions. Britain and France are now joining in sanctions against Jews in the land of Israel. The Nazi European Union now wants to outlaw kosher food and kosher meat. So we're going to be discussing that. And we're going to be discussing how Jews are being murdered in Israel every day now. Israeli soldiers or Israeli civilians are being hit by rocket fire. I mean, this is a daily occurrence now for more than 4 months. And the Israeli government is allowing this to take place because they're so worried that the world is going to get angry at Israel for defending herself. And the world is still going after Israel anyway. So we have a lot of territory to cover. I hope we can get to all of it. And then we're going to have David Ben Moshe, who always has very important things to tell us about as well. But first, this program is dedicated to a refuah shlema, complete recovery, for Mark Ben Sarah, Sharon Mitman, Shlomo Ben Sarah, Dorit Bat Sarah, Ruven Ben Shoshana, and Ruth Bat Sarah. And to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls, for Malka Bat Meir, Allegra Bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Zeb Ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Arab Mir Kahana, Arab Benjamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi Bat Liba, Yosef Ben Meir, Robert Mitman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat. Over 7 million illegal aliens in the past 3 years since Joe Biden took office have crossed into the United States using the southern border. Over 7 million illegal aliens flooding all of the major cities like New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and San Francisco.
And raising the crime in those cities.
Raising the crime to the point where people are afraid to go to work. People are afraid to go shopping. Children are afraid to go to school. It's unbelievable what's going on. I mean, terrorizing millions and millions of Americans, millions of law-abiding Americans. This is what things have come to. You go to streets in Manhattan, in New York City, or parts of Los Angeles and parts of San Francisco, and you have 5 or 6 lines of illegal aliens, 5 or 6 deep on each street. It's just unbelievable. Tent cities, miles long, with illegal aliens now, in addition to the 10 cities of all the homeless in California. The situation is completely out of control. The Biden administration has allowed over 7 million to come flooding in, and this is despite the fact that Joe Biden is running for re-election this November, and this is very unpopular with the voters. Even many Democrats are very upset about this and worried about that. I'm talking about Democrat voters. And so there's been some minor restraint here and there, but still allowing over 7 million to come in a time when he has to run for re-election, and this is hurting the Democrats politically. Imagine what's going to happen when there is no election, because Biden can't run after a second term. He can never run again. They're not going to have to worry about him getting reelected. In a second term, they have a plan, and this is what's being spoken about. They have a plan to open the border more and to provide for more lenient and generous sanctuary provisions, and to assist people coming across the border in a more humane way, because they're having such a tough time coming across the border. We have to be more humane in assisting them, because after all, these are people seeking sanctuary from persecution. That's the claim they're making, the bogus claim that they make. Many of these people are drug addicts, criminals, drug dealers,
Pedophiles,
pimps, and terrorists. And they're coming into the country and they're escaping political persecution. Yeah, sure. The people who are being politically persecuted are the American people. Law-abiding citizens are the ones who have to flee political persecution and who need a sanctuary from all of this. And so Biden and the Democrats have been speaking about, and there have been reports of this, Biden and the Democrats have been, behind the scenes are speaking about after the election, we can open up the borders completely and say, well, there's nothing we can do. They're seeking sanctuary and they're bad economic conditions. We just have to make allowances. We don't have a choice, they're going to say. And they will allow 20 million plus illegals to come flooding across the border in the second Biden term. If that happens, which is the plan, if that happens, if 20 million plus come flooding across the border, as opposed to the 7 million we've seen in the past 3 years, America is finished. America can't cope with that type of onslaught. The country is already overwhelmed, saturated with illegals, and then with other third world people who commit crime and are destroying entire swaths of the country. Huge segments of the country are being devastated, decimated by third world people who commit endless crime, who steal, rob, rape, murder, burglarize, are gang members, deal in drugs in their countries, in their home countries. Raping and attacking women is considered to be perfectly acceptable. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what a woman is supposed to be. That's what a woman is there for, to be raped and to be attacked. If you like her, you're supposed to grab her and, do what you want. That's the mentality. That's the culture they come from. And so women can't walk the streets anymore. Our wives, our sisters, our daughters, our mothers are not going to be safe walking the streets anywhere because the cities are saturated. The cities aren't going to be able to take anymore. So they're going to start flooding all the suburbs, which is already starting to happen. And then they're going to go into rural areas. There'll be nowhere to escape any of this. And this is the plan of the Democrats, is to have so many come in that it changes the demographics of the country. And America has a third world majority, and eventually to put them on the fast track to citizenship, because they're going to say, well, listen, if you don't make them citizens, we have chaos. What are we going to do? It's just chaos. They're going to be homeless. We got to keep them in hotels. We can't employ them. We got to be realistic here. That's going to be what they're going to, the excuse. Those are going to be some of the excuses they're going to use. And then left-wing news media, of course, will back them up 1,000% and show how inhumane it is and how terrible and how we should feel sorry for the illegals and not feel sorry for the American people who are their victims. This is going to be the campaign. And if that happens, what will you have? You already have a country which in 2008 overwhelmingly elected Barack Hussein Osama, a black Muslim terrorist who hates the United States, who hates white people, who supports Louis Farrakhan, who went to Farrakhan's rallies and supports Louis Farrakhan, an anti-Semite who wants to destroy Israel. He was elected president with a large majority in 2008 and re-elected with a large majority in 2012. So America is already a center-left country with a center-left majority that votes left-wing. America's already a country that leans left because of the huge number of third world people in the country. And so you add another 20 million to that, that America becomes an overwhelmingly left-wing country. The whole country becomes overwhelmingly left-wing. And all of America becomes like New York or California politically. In other words, it will be impossible for Republicans or conservatives or even phony conservatives. No one will be able to get elected unless they're left-wing, unless they're approved by the politically correct left. No one will be able to get elected, which is what you have in California. California for decades now, no Republican and no conservative has come even close to winning an election. They've lost overwhelmingly all the positions: governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, all the positions that are on the ballot. I don't know if secretary of state's on the ballot in California, but All the statewide, every statewide position has gone to the left-wing Democrats for decades, and overwhelmingly. It hasn't even been close, overwhelmingly, with one exception. Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected governor, but that was already many years ago. But if you take him out of the picture, since the 1990s, you've had nothing but left-wing Democrats elected throughout all the statewide elections in California, and there's no hope for changing it. And so what will happen if you add another 20 million to that, and the 7 million that came in under Biden now? If you add those numbers, if you legalize them and you get them on the fast track to a citizenship, which is what the Democrat plan is when Biden is reelected, God forbid, you do that, that's it. That's it. You have an overwhelming majority on the left in the country. And conservatives and Republicans will be only about 40% of the voters at that point. You'll have like a 60-40 split in favor of the left. How in the world would the country survive that? The country can't survive that. That's the end. So this election is so critical. It is so important and so vital that people understand what's at stake here, because this is the ultimate tipping point. Some people say, I think David probably agrees with them, but some people say we've already passed the tipping point.
I've been saying that for over 20 years.
Yeah, that it's already all over. And it may be, but it will certainly be all over if Biden's elected to a second term and is able to put this plan into effect. Because then you have Democrats will be elected president in perpetuity. You'll never have a Republican president again, unless it's a left-wing Republican who's more left-wing than the Democrats. You'll never have anyone who's not left-wing as president, and the Democrats and the left will take over both political parties. Yes, they'll have such huge numbers they'll be able to take over the Republican Party as well, and they will take over both political parties, and they will have big majorities in the House and in the Senate. That's what you have in New York. That's what you have in California. That's the future of America. That's where America is going. Now, America was going in that direction even when Donald Trump was president, but much slower. And so if it's much slower, maybe we have some chance of somehow stopping this and rescuing the situation if it's much slower. Maybe. But under Biden, with this fast track approach where he's letting so many in and plans to let many more in when he's not up for re-election, you can't turn the situation around once that happens. Then it's too late. Then it really is hopeless and it's all over. Now, that's the situation as far as the United States. Israel, we've already explained to you how dangerous what Biden is doing is for Israel, regarding Israel. He's pushing sanctions now that all the countries of the world are now joining in, and he wants to diplomatically recognize the so-called state of Palestine, even though there's no Palestinian people, there is no Palestine, all of it is a lie. But he wants to diplomatically recognize this vicious lie, which is a propaganda excuse to destroy Israel. I mean, the United States will say, we want an embassy in Palestine, and we want to have a Palestinian embassy in Washington. And once the United States does that, every country in the world is going to do that. They'll all follow step. And then Israel will have the entire world ganging up on her. And are the Israeli people strong enough to survive in a situation like that? Who knows? Very, very tough situation. So we're at a point where America's survival and Israel's survival are both at a crossroads here. And if we don't make the right decisions, it will be over. It will be over, and it'll be a terrible, tragic future that we'll have. You see how far this is going. Now the Nazi European Union they're encouraged by the sanctions of Biden and by all of this anti-Israel, all the anti-Israel mob attack that's taking place on a world basis. Now the Nazi European Union, which consists of countries that murdered 6 million Jews during the Holocaust, these are the worst murderers in history, and these monsters now want to outlaw kosher food. They say kosher slaughter is inhumane. First of all, kosher slaughter is the most humane slaughter. It's a slaughter where the animal feels the least pain. It is the best system of slaughter. And it's a slaughter that God commanded the Jewish people in the Bible to do it according to God's laws. It is the best and the most humane slaughter by far. But they're worried about the slaughtering animals when they murdered over 6 million Jewish men, women, and children. They murdered 1.5 million Jewish children and babies in gas chambers and ovens and doing experiments on them and committing the cruelest crimes in human history. And they're telling the Jews, we don't like your kosher slaughter, it's inhumane. The people who did, the Nazis who did this, the European Nazis who did this to the Jews, and who murdered Jews and tortured Jews and raped Jews and attacked Jews for 2,000 years in inquisitions and crusades, just because they were Jewish, and committed the worst crimes in history against them. And they're telling the Jews, we're going to outlaw your kosher food now. You know, the UN does a report on what they call settler violence. That's the new thing. That's what Biden said. He said settler violence. Biden and Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who is the Judenrat capo, self-hating piece of subhuman filth that works for Biden. Biden and Blinken say settler violence, that the Jews are settlers who are committing violence against Palestinians. First, there are no Palestinians. The Arabs themselves always said, we're Arabs, we're not Palestinians, until 50 or 60 years ago. But anyway, they're saying settler violence. And they have a report. The UN and the so-called human rights organizations put out a report. What a farce. The so-called human rights organizations, by the way, work with the Hamas terrorists. Many of them participated in the Hamas terrorist attack on October 7th on the outskirts of Gaza. They participated. They're UN employees, the UNRWA and all the UN employees, they participated in all of this. The human rights organization, they participated together with Hamas in raping Jewish women, in cutting the heads off of Jewish babies, in putting Jews in ovens, just like during the Holocaust, in murdering Jewish babies in front of their parents, raping Jewish women in front of their husbands and in front of their children. They participated in these atrocious crimes, in grabbing Jewish women and parading them naked through the streets of Gaza, while everybody threw stones and spit at them and attacked them and threw stones and rocks and hit them with sticks until they were dead. And the people participating in this now are coming out with human rights reports on settler violence. What is settler violence? I'll give you an example of settler violence. They came out with 19,000 instances of settler violence. When Jews go to pray at the Temple Mount, go up to pray with permission of the Israeli government and the Israeli police, that's settler violence. When Jews visit Judea and Samaria, visit Jewish tourists, that's settler violence. It's listed there. Every time there were Jewish tourists or anything, they're listing this as settler violence. When you have incidents where Arab terrorists attack Jews and the Jews defend themselves, that's settler violence. One incident where one man, his brother, was stabbed by an Arab terrorist, took out a big knife and started stabbing his brother. And so he shot the Arab to death. While the Arab was stabbing his brother, by the way, died. His Jewish brother died. The Israeli Jew was being stabbed by an Arab Muslim Nazi terrorist, and he died of stab wounds eventually. And the brother then shot the Arab terrorist to death before he could go and stab everybody else. That was called murder, settler murder. Now, the Arab terror, was the Arab terrorist, was that an example of Arab Muslim violence? No. No. Arab terrorist attacks on Jews are not listed as violence. Arabs setting off bombs against Jewish children. Arabs murdering Jewish children and Jewish babies. That's not violence, according to the report. What is violence? When Jews even visit their biblical homeland. That's called settler violence. And I'm not exaggerating. That's literally what's in the report of the UN, funded, by the way, by US taxpayers and European taxpayers and other Western taxpayers. And so we have a situation here where now Jews are being murdered every day. 3 Israeli Jewish soldiers were murdered yesterday on the day we're doing this. We're doing this show on February 14th, 2024, Wednesday, February 14th. Yesterday, on Wednesday, February 13th, 3 Israeli soldiers were murdered for no reason. They murdered because you have to be worried about innocent Arab civilians. What innocent? They all support the Hamas terrorists. They're not innocent. They work together with the Hamas terrorists, and it's the so-called innocent civilians that murdered these 3 magnificent, brave Jewish soldiers. And so now the children of these soldiers have to grow up without a father, and their wives have to go, their wives now have to be widows, have to go without a husband. And their parents experience the loss of their son. 3 Jewish soldiers murdered yesterday. Hundreds of Jewish soldiers have been killed, have been murdered since the beginning of this war, unnecessarily. If Israel just flattened everything in Gaza and just went in and that was it, and cut off all the water and all, if Israel would just cut off the water and all the medicine, water, supplies, everything else, the way you do in a war, in 2 or 3 days they would have to surrender. They wouldn't have water, they wouldn't have food, they wouldn't have anything. They'd be dying. They'd be desperate. No fuel. Israel gives them fuel in the middle of the war, gives fuel to the terrorists, to their enemies in the middle of the war. Do you ever hear of anything like this?
Yeah, the West is insane. It's not just Israel. It's something that we would do too. The West doesn't deserve to survive.
Yeah, but the United States did not do this in Iraq or Afghanistan when they went to war. And they didn't do this in Vietnam. They didn't give the Viet Cong medicine and fuel, and they didn't do that. Okay, they went and bombed. The United States killed hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese in the Vietnam War. Hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese were killed by American fighter bombers. Justifiably. But they were killed. But
that's what you're supposed to do in war. But that was how long ago? Things have changed.
No, but in Iraq and Afghanistan, they did the same thing. They slaughtered huge numbers of Arabs were killed in Iraq and Afghanistan by the United States. They didn't go in doing what the Israeli army's going, checking every building and getting blown up every minute because they're so worried that they're going to hurt some Arab. This is a madness. And so, and by the way, 1 Israeli soldier's life is worth more than the lives of all the stinking terrorists in Gaza. Okay? 1 Israeli life is worth more than all of the Muslim Nazi terrorist supporters in Gaza. And hundreds have been murdered in this war. 1,200 innocent Jews were slaughtered just on October 7th. But since then, hundreds more have died. Hundreds of Israeli soldiers have died. They're dying every single day for no reason. They don't have to die. If they took out the enemy the way they're supposed to, they don't have to die. Now, they'll say, yeah, but we don't have enough ammunition to blow up every building in Gaza because the Israeli government, criminally, the Israeli army and the Israeli government run by leftists, criminally left Israel without enough weapons and enough ammunition to do the job in a lengthy war. It shouldn't be a lengthy war. They could win it very quickly if they didn't worry about so-called civilians. But even if you don't want to waste, so you have so many, use explosives on every single building in Gaza, you want to completely level Gaza, do you know how much explosive power that would take? No. Do it with tractors. Just go in and level it. In 1 week, you can level all of Gaza with Israel's tractors. It's amazing how fast they were able to do it in the Gush Katif against Jews. They're very efficient. So this is what we're facing here. Now, there are two things that we do politically. First of all, we're supporting the Hilltop Youth, who are the only ones who will protect us from a so-called Palestinian state, because that's where we're headed unless the Hilltop Youth get the support they need. The Hilltop Youth are the one group that is blocking that, that's doing the right thing. And by the way, 20,000 Arabs have left Judea and Samaria in the past 4 months since the beginning of the war. And they say, they blame the Hilltop Youth. They say, well, the Hilltop Youth are forcing us out. Whatever the Hilltop Youth are not forcing anybody out. The Hilltop Youth are just there taking as much land as they can take for their cattle and for their flocks and their agricultural, the crops that they grow in their agricultural development. They're taking as much land as they can take, and the Arabs are saying, "Oh, this is encroaching upon us, and we can't." The Arabs are terrified of the Hilltop Youth. But anyway, a few hundred Hilltop Youth, they're blaming them. Maybe 400, 500 Hilltop Youth. They're blaming them for 20,000 Arabs leaving in the past 4 months. And everybody's complaining about the fact that the Arabs are leaving. Complaining? When Arabs leave the land of Israel, they're complaining about that? I mean, I would think that any Jew who's sane would be thrilled that they're leaving. And the Hilltop Youth, by the way, openly say in the media when they're interviewed, they openly say, "Oh, the Arabs are leaving, good riddance." They openly say that, which is considered to be, wow, you can't say that. Why not? Why not? They want to they want to murder all of us. All the non-Muslim infidels they want to murder. So we support the Hilltop Youth. And politically, we're supporting Donald Trump for president. We have to support Donald Trump for president. We have got to defeat Joe Biden. We have to support Trump for president. You know that I'm not a fan of Donald Trump's, but he didn't impose sanctions, and I hope that he won't do that. I hope he won't. He did not impose sanctions when he was president. So he didn't do he didn't go as far as Biden is going by any measure. So Biden is much worse right now, much worse right now. Again, I hope Trump doesn't adopt these policies himself if he becomes president. If he does, we'll turn on him in a second if he tries to stab Israel in the back and adopt these Biden-like policies toward Israel. We hope he doesn't. But right now, he's the only option we have. We've got to get rid of Biden and Blinken and Kamala Harris and all these other evil Jew-hating swine that are trying to destroy Israel. We got to get rid of them. We got to get them out this November. We must support Donald Trump. It is essential. That's what we're doing in the United States politically. In Israel politically, we're supporting Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut party. Zehut means identity party. We're supporting Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut party because he's the only one telling the truth right now. It's true that we've had political differences with him in the past as well, but right now he's telling the truth. Right now he really is telling the truth, and he really is advocating what should be done. He's saying we have to have a plan to get the Arabs out of Israel. And we have to encourage them. He's saying we have to encourage them to leave. He has to use that language not to get banned. I hope he doesn't get banned, which is possible. He could be banned by the Israeli Supreme Court. I hope he doesn't get banned. But he's saying we have to encourage the Arabs to leave Israel, and he has a whole plan to do that, which sounds like a real Kahanist plan, or that sounds very good. And and a lot of the other things he's saying things that are very true and very courageous, and we're in touch with him. We're in communication with him. We have to support Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut party in Israel, and when Israel has elections, when the time comes after the war, when the time comes, I think there'll be elections after the war. When that happens, we have to support Feiglin and the Zehut party. And in America, we must support Donald Trump. That's what we got to do politically. And financially, we've got to support the Hilltop Youth. Let me give you a quick opportunity to support the Hilltop Youth. Just go to our Hebrew main page, hayamin.org, hayamin.org. And there's a donate button on top in English. Most of it's in Hebrew, but there's a donate button on top in English. You just click on the donate button and you can very easily and conveniently help the heroic Hilltop Youth. If you want the Arabs out of Israel, you'll help the Hilltop Youth. If you don't, if you want the Jews out of Israel and want to destroy the Jewish state, then you won't support the Hilltop Youth. That's the choice you have to make right now, and that really is the choice. So you go to hayamin.org, or you go to, if you don't want to do it online, if you want to do it through the regular mail, you just make a check or money order out to JTF and you send it to JTF PO Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York 11365. I'm giving the address quickly because you can find that address. You see jtf.org on your screen. Go to jtf.org, look at Contact Us, and you'll see the address on your screen. So you can help us online, or you can help us by sending checks or money orders through the regular mail. And when I say help us, we're talking about helping the Hilltop Youth. All of our money, all of our budget goes to help the Hilltop Youth. It really is a critical situation. And, you know, we're at a historic point where, and by the way, I'm not sure at all that Trump is going to win. I hope he'll win. I hope he'll beat Biden, but I'm not sure. Because if he gets screwed in the courts, if he gets convicted before the election, if there's a conviction before the election, polls show that then he would fall behind Biden in the polls. Because there are enough stupid people who will vote against him because of that and vote for Biden. I'm not saying that him being convicted is a small thing, but Biden is worse. No matter what, Biden is worse. And so, you know, there's a danger that that might happen. We have to see what the Supreme Court's going to do now with his appeals, with his appeal on one of his cases. We want him to succeed in stalling this past the election. If he stalls it past the election, he as president can order the Justice Department to just drop the charges. So, or he can give himself a pardon. So, you know, he has a chance, but it's not certain at all. It's not certain at all, and they're going after him. They're doing everything they can. They're going after him. One last thing before we turn to David. I know I've gone on for a very long time here because this is a very important program, very important week for us. But one last thing. Joe Biden, as we've mentioned before, has 10,000 nuclear missiles that he can launch because he has the nuclear code as president, as the commander-in-chief. He can launch those nuclear missiles and it can wipe out the whole human race. This is someone whose own special counsel from his own Justice Department said in the recent special counsel report that when he interviewed Joe Biden couldn't remember when he was vice president. He didn't remember when he was vice president. This is the commander-in-chief of the United States, who 10,000 nuclear missiles under his control. This is someone who on the campaign trail forgot twice already, forgot who the president was when he was vice president, forgot Obama's name. Many times he thinks he's a senator. He refers to himself as a senator and asks people to vote to reelect him to the Senate. I mean, it is so obvious that he is completely out of it. He is completely verblunged. I mean, he is out of it.
Did you know just this past week, he was talking about Israel and Gaza, and he mentioned Mexico, thinking Mexico borders Israel. I wish, but
he said Sisi is the dictator of Egypt, is the president of Mexico. He mixes up Mexico and Egypt. He doesn't know the difference between tacos and hummus. But anyway, I mean, he's so out of it. He is so, it is just beyond pathetic. Beyond belief. How could he possibly be president of the United States? He belongs in a nursing home. He should be under 24-hour care. He's the type of person who'll walk out in the street and lose his way and get lost. He gets lost on stage. He goes like this. He doesn't know where he's going. His wife or his aides have to come and grab him by the hand and say, "Yes, Joey. Come on, Joey. 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 Come on, Joey." They have to come on the stage, his aides and his wife, and grab him and take him. He doesn't know where he is. He gets lost. America is lost if this schmuck gets reelected. That is, I mean, that is the end of this country. It's beyond it really isn't funny. It really is a terrible, terrible tragedy. I mean, but I mean, what's happening to the country? I don't feel sorry for him because he's the scum of the earth. He was always a political opportunist and never cared about anybody but himself. I don't care about him, but I do.
Political hack.
But yeah, but the consequences for the country, for America, for Israel, for the world are horrific consequences. We better wake up. We better wake up fast. Support JTF. Get involved with us. Let's wake up fast and let's turn the situation around while we still can. David?
Well, the rest of the government in Washington isn't so hot either. In fact, that's the real Super Bowl. The people against the people in Washington. And that Super Bowl will feature the Patriots against the Steelers. Dalton police are now the personal valet of the mayor in Dalton, the town we brought up week after week after week, and nobody does anything about this mayor, while crime is shooting through the roof because she has so many of the police officers on her personal staff running errands for her instead of patrolling the streets and doing what has to be done there. So you get what you vote for and you get what you deserve. And the same thing with Joe Biden. People voted for him. Country deserves him. This is the government we deserve. A senile old fool in the White House and over 500 crooks in the Capitol. Stephen Cohn, congressman from Tennessee. You know, this past Sunday was the Super Bowl. I watched one Super Bowl in my entire life because there was nothing else on at the time. I didn't watch this one, but he's dismayed and very disappointed. Upset is a better word, that everybody didn't stand for the Black national anthem. In fact, almost nobody stood for the Black national anthem. But if Americans had any conviction, which they don't, they would have shut the game off as soon as that Black anthem started. And even if you spent $500 or $1,000 for a ticket, if it was me, I would have got up and walked out of the stadium.
By the way, Stephen Cohen, who is a self-hating Jew, tried to join the Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus, which has a sacred covenant, quote unquote, with Louis Farrakhan. They support Farrakhan, and he wanted to join that caucus to support Farrakhan and to be part of the Congressional Black Caucus. Also anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and the Jew, he wants to join the anti-Semites and the Nazis in that caucus.
And still, he gets reelected and reelected.
Oh, his district is a black district. No, his district is a black district. That's why he gets reelected. People, the whites in Tennessee wouldn't vote for him, but his district is a black district. Okay.
The thing is, are blacks ever going to wake up? The Democrats are holding you down on the plantation. And as Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president, said when he signed the Civil Rights Bill, this will give us, he didn't use the word black, he used a different word, this will give us the black vote for the next 100 years. And he was laughing about it. And he knew it was so true. I saw a video of a SWAT team. It's the first all-woman SWAT team. And they were running through an obstacle course, and they were up on a top platform with a rope to a slightly lower platform. You had to grab on this handle with wheels, and you'd slide over to the other platform. But you had to get a running start because the tilt in the rope was almost non-existent. So they got their running start, and they stopped about 2/3 of the way through. They weren't strong enough to make it to the end. And they're hanging there, kicking, and nothing will move. One of them can't hang on anymore, so she falls into the water underneath. So this is the SWAT team. This is what American lives in trouble are going to depend on. When they can't even slide from one post to another, they just don't have the strength. It's time we realize there are differences. Nobody is equal. No group is equal to another group. No sex is equal to another sex. No race is equal to another race. We all have our differences. And within each of those groups, people are different. Some are born with very low IQs. Within, say the white race, some are born with low IQs. Some are born with genius IQs. So we're all different. We all have different skills. I have a table tennis player who's 6'3", and he's so injured from being a great athlete his whole life. He's 100% Chickasaw. He can't move. In fact, he just had surgery this past Monday. Once again, his third knee replacement, because the first one was not good at all. But he's also got 10 stents in him. He's had ankle replaced. He's terrible physically. But he's up against the table, and he has an abnormal reach. He doesn't have to move for the ball. His arms, even for someone 6'3", are abnormally long. So he's not equal to other people who are 6'3". And I'm glad he's got these extra long arms, because if you hit the ball to the side, he doesn't have to move for it. He just reaches out and gets it. It's amazing. I love playing against him. And hopefully he's recovering nicely from his last surgery. Congressman George Santos versus Senator, I think he's Senator, right? Dennis Martinez? Or is he a congressman?
I don't know who Dennis Martinez is. I don't know who that is. I know who George Santos is.
Yeah, the Republicans kicked him out.
Yeah, I don't know who Martinez is.
He's a corrupt senator or congressman from the Northeast.
Menendez. You're talking about
Menendez.
Menendez.
What did I say?
Dennis? Menendez.
Yeah, I have Menendez. It's
Menendez
small.
From New Jersey. Okay, because you said Martinez.
Yeah, I can't see with my glasses. I just wear them for status.
Right. Okay.
So Dennis Menendez, he's been corrupt year after year after year, but because he's a Democrat, he gets away with, well, they're all corrupt, but they have to have a sacrificial lamb every once in a while. And his crimes were so great that even the news media pointed it out. And those, of course, the Republicans pointed out, not that they're going to do anything about it. The Republicans never do anything. But the Republicans asked George Santos to leave because he was caught in corruption, and he left. So they just had an election on the seat, and the Democrat won.
He didn't, by the way, he was thrown out, George Santos.
Yeah.
He was thrown out. Okay.
So they had an election, and the Democrat won. So the Democrats picked up another seat in the House. If you think there's going to be a red wave, a red tide because of Trump's coattails, I think the country's too far gone for that. I hope I'm wrong. As bad as the Republicans are, they're still better than the Democrats. But you notice with Dennis Menendez, nobody will ask him to get up and get out and give him the boot because they don't want to risk losing the seat.
I don't remember what his first. I think his name is Bob Menendez.
Is it Bob?
I think
Bob
so.
Menendez?
Bob Menendez. I think so.
No, I got Dennis. Okay, Bob Menendez. I'll just call him.
I know that he was on the payroll of every foreign government. Completely.
Yes, I'll just call him Criminal Menendez.
a real traitor, a real criminal. I mean, the foreign governments were literally literally bringing in bags of cash and handing it over to him. I mean, the worst of the worst.
See, the Democrats won't ask him to leave because they may risk losing the seat. And that's the difference. Excuse me. That's the difference between the Democrat leadership and the Republican leadership. The Republican leadership just goes along to get along, while the Democrats will do anything they have to win. I just marked down a few things that illegals have done in the past week. An illegal bit off the finger of a New York City policeman. Illegals attack police officers, not the one you saw where they attacked 2 officers. This is a bigger group of illegals attacking a bigger group of police officers. Illegals arrested for having $12,000 in stolen in clothes. Migrant kills another at Rikers Island Support Center, where a whole bunch of them are bedded down. This is not Rikers Island, the prison. This is a support center to house them. They closed the school. The kids are learning from home to house illegals. I believe it was in New York, but I'm not positive on that.
The illegals are more important than American children.
Wait till it gets so bad, they'll close hospitals and put illegals in there. Then someone sent me a video. It shows tens of thousands. It must be hot there. In Italy and in Spain, black people, their shirts off, and they're jumping up and down like Zulus. And the person who sent it to me had tears in his eyes. He said, "This is the end of my beloved Italy," as the Zulus are jumping up and down. How did they get in there? What's wrong with the governments of Western nations? They are there to represent and lead the people of that nation, not to worry about the rest of the world. The rest of the world has their own governments. If the people don't like those governments, overthrow them. I also wanted to point out, if illegal aliens, as some Democrats will say, strengthen our economy and strengthen our country, why didn't they strengthen the countries they're coming from? And I was watching a video where three, not white lions, white like white tigers, white lions, they really can't exist in the wild because they could be seen coming. But these were very pale tan lions, almost white. It's like a cross between a wild brown lion and a white lion. It was a very pale tan. And they were attacking the leader of this pride to kick him out and take over because they were young, they had numbers, and they were strong because of their youth. So they kicked the old male out. Of course, there's a fight and they tear him up first. They kick him out. And usually that male lion can't exist because male lions are too heavy, too slow to actually hunt for themselves. Every once in a while, when you see the lionesses surround the prey, the male lion will rush in and finish it off, especially with hyenas. But they're basically a little too slow to do all their hunting on their own. But that made me think, you're looking at the strong and the smart, the wiser, overthrowing the old. And you look at a herd of zebra or a herd of wildebeest or a herd of bison. Would they elect the weakest and dumbest among them to lead the herd? No, the strongest leads the herd. The one with the wisdom, the one who's in his prime, who's got enough experience and has the strength to defeat any challenger. The strongest leads, the wisest leads, but not in the human race. Look, the American people are so stupid and so just I don't care attitude that they elected Joe Biden. Look at the debate in Pennsylvania with John Fetterman. He couldn't put two sentences together that made any sense. And yet the people voted for him because I don't know if it was Fetterman that had the stroke or the people of Pennsylvania had the stroke, but somebody's brain wasn't working, just like around the country. And we just had, as I mentioned, George Santos. He lost that seat. So if you're thinking a red tide's coming, hopefully Trump has enough coattails to pull some more Republicans over to the Senate and to the House. But I don't know. I don't see any red tide because most people don't see much difference between Republicans and Democrats. And the Republicans are starting to disgust a lot of people with their cowardice, with their nonchalant, with their cutesy poo playing by the rules of as if this was 1940 or 1950. The Democrats play to win. The Republicans just play to go along, to get along, and you can't get along with Democrats. You'll notice anytime there's a vote, the Democrats stick together. The Republicans, they will always let you down. There'll always be a handful that vote with Democrats against their fellow Republicans, against the people that put them in office. And yet the people are so stupid, they're going to vote those same people back in. There was I don't know who he is, Robert Hur, an investigator, and he's basically a leftist who turned on the left a little bit.
He's a special counsel.
Special counsel, and he was investigating the Bidens. And he went to Merrick Garland, and he wanted to prosecute the Bidens. Garland said, we can't. Biden is too incompetent to stand trial. Well, that's sort of a burn on Biden that, I mean, the media is playing this, everything's playing it down. But if you look, you'll see a few places where it said he's too incompetent to stand trial. Well, if he's too incompetent to stand trial, how is he competent enough to run what used to be the greatest nation in the world, with China coming up? I don't know if we're still the greatest. We're basically a third world nation with a first world military and a decaying first world infrastructure that we just don't have the money to, not even to fix up, just keep in repairs. This country's in trouble. We owe $34 trillion. If it was $1 trillion, we couldn't pay it off. So we're in quite a bit of trouble. And this burden, eventually we won't even, the annual budget won't even cover the interest on all this money we owe. So the burden is going to be on our children and grandchildren if this country's even still around then.
And, you know, that special counsel's report from her, that is what he said. He actually said that the reason he's not charging Biden, he said Biden deliberately, illegally held classified documents. He said Biden knew what he was doing and did it illegally, which, by the way, means that he should be charged. They're charging Trump with the same thing in the Florida case.
Yeah, but nobody touches Democrats.
But Biden did the same exact thing. And not only that, Biden was not even president when he did it. He was a senator, and then he was a vice president when he did it. So he had no legal basis to, and no legal protection whatsoever. So his case in some ways is more serious. And yet Hur said that he can't, he said he basically gave as the excuse for not charging. He said, I can't charge him because he didn't remember anything. He doesn't remember his age. He doesn't remember when he was vice president. He doesn't remember conversations he had. He doesn't remember who his staff is. He didn't remember anything. He has no memory.
Point where he doesn't know who his wife is.
Yeah, and he probably doesn't know now. But you know, I mean, the whole thing is just, it's how could somebody like this be president of the United States? I mean,
oh, I have one more thing that I didn't write down because I just saw it yesterday evening. Joe Biden is campaigning in Carolina.
South Carolina, yeah.
And the town of Raleigh.
Oh, in Raleigh, South Carolina. That's North Carolina.
Yeah, that's why he's.
That's North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Okay.
Raleigh is not the Raleigh of the Andy Griffith Show. Mm-hmm. It's a black town now. So Biden decided he was going to drop in on a black family and have dinner with them, which is a nice gesture. Can you imagine you're sitting in your house and all of a sudden either the governor of your state or the president comes in and wants to join you for dinner? So that's a nice gesture. But what he did was he brought a bucket of fried chicken to a black family. So if that isn't a racist insult, of course, they're not going to call him out on that. But after he left, the family's probably saying he probably thinks this is all we eat is fried chicken. It's a good thing it wasn't summertime. Otherwise, he would have had a watermelon under his other arm. And that's our president. What kind of campaign staff does he have that allows this? This is not good optics.
And, you know, Kamala Harris, the so-called vice president, who is, I'm not sure if she has IQ in the single digits or in the minus numbers even, because she's just unbelievable. She actually, when she goes to speak in front of some wealthy group of people, wealthy donors, a wealthy group of people, she starts speaking like this. She pretends that she speaks like this, you know, she's very, almost like the Queen of England, you know, she starts speaking like this. And I'm not exactly, she tries to put on like she's, you know, very sophisticated. She goes to black churches and speaks, and all of a sudden it's, my name be Kamala Harris. Literally. I mean, this is literally, if that, isn't that insulting? I mean, I think it's insulting. She puts on this extremely exaggerated Southern black accent when she speaks in front of black churches. But when she speaks in front of wealthy white people, she starts with a British, she almost has a British accent. I mean,
well, you know, Hillary did the same thing. I ain't tired no how. I didn't come all this way when she's speaking to black churches.
oh, she did that too. Oh, okay.
And Joe Biden, gonna put you all back in chains. Remember he said that about
they're gonna put you all back in chains. Yeah, which is very insulting. Very, very insulting. You see, because white leftists, you know, they think they understand black people, but they're the most racist people in the country, the white leftists. Because even though they claim to support blacks and support all these black causes, Black Lives Matter and all these other anti-Semitic and racist organizations that they support. But even though they claim to support black causes, they don't want to live with black people. When a black person moves into a neighborhood of white leftists, all the white leftists put their houses up for sale. They don't want to live together with black people. So they're hypocrites and phonies and two-faced. You know, you could say whatever you want about the real right-wing Americans, but at least they're honest. I mean, isn't it better to have somebody who's honest and tells you the truth than a two-faced hypocrite from Hollywood or from Manhattan or from Georgetown in Washington, D.C.? Anyway.
Wait, I got one quick thing to add to that. Yeah. How many leftists have said we don't need ID to vote because blacks don't have IDs? And you tell that to blacks in Harlem, just the average black on the street, and they get all insulted. Of course we have IDs. But the white leftists think they're so dumb that they can't even go to the Motor Vehicle Bureau and get an ID or the post office. Or you have your Social Security card, which was issued by the federal government. But white leftists think we don't need IDs when we vote because blacks can't get them.
What about driver's license? Black people don't have driver's licenses? Actually,
that's your main ID, really. Yeah. Especially if you have a driver's license with your picture on it.
Yeah, actually, by the way, driver's license for voting. This is great. That'd be great for the Democrats because the Democrats give driver's licenses now to illegal aliens. You know about that, right?
Yeah.
You know that they're handing out driver's licenses to illegal aliens, and in some cities, by the way, they want to give illegal aliens the right to vote. They want to make them voters now too.
Well, remember the time you were online to vote, and two Hispanics came in, and you knew they didn't belong in that neighborhood, so you started speaking to them and asking them if they live here to vote, and they looked at each other like they were, like you had two heads, and then you said, "Come, we go see the policia," and so they walked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, I don't even want to go into what happened sometimes when I go to vote. I don't even want to go into that, but because I don't want us to have problems. But no question about it that, you know, this country is becoming a mental asylum. And we're trying to bring you the truth, though, every week. We're trying to tell you the truth. We're trying to stand up for what's right. And that's why it's important that you help us and join with us. Because in your heart, you know we're right. And in your guts, you know they're nuts. For JTF until next week, and for David Ben Moshe, this is Chaim Ben Pesach. Shalom.